Right guys, welcome back to part 2 of the garden makeover. In the last episode I finished by removing the raised deck area and was left with the lower portion of the decking and the slabs you can see. Well, I went off camera and ripped up the remainder of the decking because that was pretty much the procedure that I used for the raised decking, so I didn't bother filming any of that. So here I am just ripping the old deck boards up so I can get them in the car, but for the meantime I'm probably just going to dump them in my alleyway until I can get them in the car and get to the tip. So once all the decking was pulled up, I could then remove the slabs, and here you can see I'm ripping up all the weed fabric that I put down under the slabs. I'm glad I actually didn't concrete these down, because that would have made it a lot more difficult to kind of remove them. So as you can see, all the decking's been removed and stacked up out in the alleyway. Now I just need to remove all the slabs, broken hardcore, and level out the area outside the window because that's sitting a lot higher than the rest of it. Then I've got to dig the whole area over, spreading the sand around, and I also got to dig out some areas to lower the ground level down, and I want to remove the grass that's in front of my workshop. As you can see, that's all been lifted up. So after about a day of digging and leveling it out as best I could, it was just a case of raking the ground over just to remove all the bigger lumps of hardcore, and trust me, there is a lot of hardcore and crap in this ground. Then I could basically use a homemade tamper just to tamp the ground down as best I can for now. This was just made out of a couple of old deck boards and a 2x2 lump of wood, and that will help kind of pack it down a little bit. Although once I've done the hardcore, I do intend hiring a whacker plate or plate compactor or whatever you want to call it to pack the gravel down once it's done. But as you can see at the moment, it's all kind of been dug over and levelled out as best as I can, and it's already looking a million times better than it did. So the first 2 bulk bags of Type 1 MOT hardcore has arrived, and now I've got the fun job of getting it from the front of the house all the way down the alleyway into the back garden. Now I did ask the driver if he could put the bulk bags one on top of the other right against the curb at the front of our parking space, but because we've got a massive tree at the front, he was unable to do that, and this was as near as he could get it, which is going to make our job a lot harder when trying to barrow it down the alleyway into the back garden, because it means we're going to have to bump up and down the curb. So let the fun begin. So luckily for me, my stepson was off work and agreed to come round and give me a hand carting it through into the back garden. We just took it in turns. And can you spot my mistake? I'll let you know what it is if you haven't worked it out already. I'm so glad he came round to help though, because although I would have done it on my own, it probably would have killed me because it was hard going. So before I start spreading the Type 1 MOT hardcore down, I need to dig 3 post holes for my lean-to that I will be building. And because our ground is absolutely full of like broken concrete, bricks, concrete blocks, tarmac, I had to bring out the big guns, and this is a Titan SDS plus rotary hammer. It's the TT8278 SDS. I think it cost me about 50 to 60 pounds, but because it's got like the jackhammer effect on it, it is absolutely brilliant and well worth the money. And I bought it when I was doing our fence and replacing all the wooden fence posts with concrete posts, because obviously I had to remove all the concrete that was around the wooden posts, and I'd even considered hiring in someone to do that because I knew it'd be a big job, but in the end I thought I'd spend 60 quid on this, or 55 quid, whatever it was, and it's an absolute brilliant bit of kit, and I've used it so many times, especially when I've had to dig in this garden. Like now you can see it's just solid like tarmac, and when I dug my trench for my electrics to my workshop, I came up against all this like tarmac and that, so I used that for that, so it's more than earned its money. And the other thing I realised was I had this like L-shape chain link fence post which I cut off years and years ago, but I actually cut the end into a slight point, and I use that when I'm digging in this ground because it is absolutely brilliant at kind of breaking concrete and whatever out the ground and actually prying it up. So that and my SDS drill saved the day. Now I did actually spend quite a few hours digging these holes, only to realise I'd actually dug them in the wrong place, because our lean-to is going to be 3 metres and I marked the holes out and dug them at 3 metres without realising that the 3 metre roof sheets that I've got need to overhang the frame, so they overlap the guttering, so the posts need to be set back from the front of the lean-to roof. So having spent hours and hours breaking all the ground out and that, I then had to fill it all back in, pack it down with a sledgehammer and re-dig them. So that was like one mistake. The other mistake is the simple fact that where I'm now laying this heavy duty weed fabric was where I actually piled all the Type 1 hardcore, and I forgot that I needed to put this sheet down. So after laying the first half and kind of pegging this down in place, I then had to basically fill the 2 bulk bags back up with the hardcore so I could finish laying this down and pegging it in place, and then I had to empty the bags the second time once this fabric was laid down. So lost quite a bit of time messing around redigging the holes and moving the gravel around. So this is actually a hard landscaping like weed membrane, actually designed for like patios, driveways, pathways, and the only clips I could get were these like metal like U-shaped clips, and they work alright but can be a bit of a nightmare hammering them into the ground, because if you hit a stone or rock or anything like that, they tend to just bend, and some of them are a right pain in the ass to get in because they just kept bending, and then you got to pull them out and straighten them out and try somewhere else. And others went in reasonably easy, but we got it sorted in the end. So I don't know how well you'll actually tell from this short clip, but you can see that they tend to bend really easy, and as soon as you hit a stone or something, you have to pull them out, straighten it out, then try a slightly different location and keep rinsing and repeating until eventually you're lucky enough to get it in the ground. But I nearly gave up on a lot of these, but we persevered, and I did eventually get the clips in all the way around the perimeter and a couple on the inside. And once they're in, they do actually work quite well, and they held the fabric in place as I was spreading the hardcore. Now, for those of you wondering why I've bothered filling the wheelbarrow up with the Type 1 and then tipping it out when I've only got like half the garden to do, well, if I was to just shovel it out the bag and start spreading it around that way, then I'd have to kind of do more raking, and anyone that's kind of worked with this stuff will know you get like 40mm rocks right down to like dust. And even though I'm not actually spreading it that far, it made more sense to kind of put it in the wheelbarrow and then make a load of individual piles, because that way I can then use the shovel to flatten the piles down. Because if you use a rake, what tends to happen is you spread all the big rocks around but leave all the fine like gravel in the one place, and that's not how it's designed to work. It's designed to work that you end up with like a good mix. So once you've kind of piled it all up, then rather than use a rake, I just used a shovel to kind of start flattening it out, and that way you kind of keep the gravel and the larger rocks together. So that was the best way I found how to do it, so that's the way it was done. I'm not sure if I've already said that I will be hiring a compactor to pack all this down, but because I'm going to need another bag or two of this hardcore to go on top, what I'm doing now is kind of spreading 50mm across the entire area. Then when I get round to ordering the next lot, I will get hold of a plate compactor or whatever you call them, and then I will go over what I've laid before spreading the next lot down. So basically I'll get 50mm of this, pack that down, then I'll spread the next 50mm over it and pack that down, and that should be enough for a patio base. So as you can see, it's pretty much getting dark now, and I've leveled the hardcore across the entire area. It still needs compacting, but we're going to leave it like this for now until I get round to getting the next lot of hardcore. This is about 50mm, and I'm going to compact this down and then spread the next lot and then compact that down. So I should have about 100mm to go under the patio when we do it. But for now, that's going to be the end of part 2, and I think you'll agree that the hard work has paid off and it's looking a lot better. Right guys, that's going to do it for part 2. I know it's taken a while to get things done, but there is only me doing it, so stick with it. If you want to see part 3 and you're not yet subscribed to the channel, then think about hitting that subscribe button, tap the little bell icon, and you'll be notified when I upload my next video. So until then, stay safe and you'll see me shortly.